Have you ever decided to be disciplined and quit by day 3? You set the alarm early. You make the plan. You tell yourself this time will be different. And for 2 days, maybe 3, it is. Then one morning the alarm goes off and you think, just today I will rest. Just today. And just today becomes just this week. And just this week becomes next month. And next month never comes. You are not weak. You are not broken. You simply were never taught how discipline actually works. Because discipline is not willpower. It is not motivation. It is not the feeling you get after watching an inspiring video. Those things fade. The Romans knew this. Marcus Aurelius knew this. And 2,000 years ago, in a world of constant war, constant plague, and constant pressure, Roman emperors built a system for the mind that did not depend on feeling ready. It only required one thing: training. This lesson is for English learners who want more than words. It is for anyone who wants to think clearer, stand firmer, and live with more purpose. Today we go back 2,000 years. We walk into the mind of the most powerful man on earth, and we learn what he knew. Marcus Aurelius was not born tough. He was not a soldier by nature. He was a quiet boy who loved books and philosophy. He became emperor at the age of 38, and for 19 years he ruled the largest empire the world had ever seen. He fought wars he did not want. He buried children he loved. He watched a plague kill millions of his people. And through all of it, he wrote. Every morning before the sun came up, he sat alone, and he trained his mind the same way his soldiers trained their bodies. He called it his practice. We call it the most powerful mental system ever written down. By the end of this lesson, you will understand 7 methods the Romans used to build unshakable mental toughness. Not theory, not philosophy for philosophers. Real methods. Methods you can use tomorrow morning. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. Let us open it. Lesson 1. The morning before the war. It is the year 162 AD. The city of Rome is still dark. The streets are quiet. Most of the empire is asleep. But in a small room at the top of the Palatine Hill, a lamp is burning. Marcus Aurelius sits at a wooden table. Outside his window, the greatest city in the world spreads out below him. He has armies waiting for his orders. He has senators who want his attention. He has a plague moving slowly toward his borders. He has more problems than any single man should carry. And yet before he deals with any of it, he does one thing first. He thinks about everything that could go wrong today. Not because he is afraid, because he refuses to be surprised. The Romans had a name for this practice. They called it Premeditatio Malorum. In simple English, the premeditation of evils. Before the day begins, you sit quietly and you ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen today? What might go wrong? What might hurt me, embarrass me, or stop me? Most people do the opposite. Most people wake up and hope for the best. They tell themselves, today will be fine. Today will be easy. And when something hard arrives, and something hard always arrives, they are not ready. The day breaks them because they never prepared for it. Marcus did not hope for the best. He prepared for the worst. And because he was prepared, nothing could shake him. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest thinkers, wrote something that sounds simple but cuts very deep. He said that we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Think about that. Most of the pain you feel in life is not from the thing itself. It is from the fear of the thing, from the waiting, from the not knowing. But the Romans found a way to use that. If the mind will suffer anyway, then make the suffering useful. Run toward the difficult thought in the morning when you are calm and rested, and face it on your own terms. Then, when it arrives in real life, you have already met it. You have already survived it in your mind. This is not pessimism. This is armor. A weak mindset wakes up and says, I hope nothing bad happens today. A prepared mindset wakes up and says something hard will come. I am ready. Think about your own morning. What do you push away? What do you avoid thinking about? The difficult conversation you need to have. The decision you keep delaying. The problem you hope will solve itself. The Roman method says face it first. Before coffee, before your phone, before anything else. Give it 60 seconds of clear, calm thought. See it fully. Then put it down and move on with your day. You will be surprised how much lighter you feel, not because the problem is gone, but because you have already looked at it without flinching. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, death, betrayal, and plague. He faced all of it with a calm that people around him could not understand. They thought he was cold. He was not cold. He was prepared. Every single morning he had already fought the day in his mind before the day had a chance to fight him. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. And the first step through that door is this: wake up before your problems do. Lesson 2. Train the body to teach the mind. There was a man in Rome who had everything. He was respected. He was powerful. He came from one of the oldest families in the city. His name was Cato the Elder, and he could have lived in comfort every single day of his life. He chose not to. Cato walked barefoot in winter, not because he had no shoes. He had shoes. He chose not to wear them. He ate plain food, the same simple meals his soldiers ate when he could have eaten anything in the empire. He slept on a hard bed. He drank water when wine was freely available. He did all of this on purpose, every day, by choice. People thought he was strange. Why would a powerful man choose to be uncomfortable? Cato had an answer. He said, I harden myself so that hardship cannot harden me. Read that again. I harden myself so that hardship cannot harden me. This is one of the most important ideas the Romans ever produced. If you train your body to tolerate discomfort, your mind learns that discomfort is survivable. And when real hardship arrives, and it will arrive, your first instinct is not panic. Your first instinct is, I have felt worse. I am still here. The Roman legions understood this completely. A Roman soldier marched 20 miles every single day. Not sometimes. Every day. He carried between 40 and 60 pounds of equipment on his back. Armor, food, tools to build a camp at the end of the march. He did this in summer heat and winter cold. He did this when he was tired and when he was sick and when he did not want to. And historians who studied these soldiers noticed something interesting. The Roman legions did not just win because they were strong. They won because they did not break when things got hard. Other armies had strong men too. But when the battle went badly, when the plan failed, when the ground was wrong and the weather was wrong and everything was wrong, the Roman soldier kept moving because he had trained for exactly that feeling. The feeling of not wanting to continue and continuing anyway. This is what voluntary discomfort teaches, not toughness of muscle, toughness of decision. Most people today live in a world designed for comfort. The temperature is always right. The food is always available. If something is difficult, there is usually a way to make it easier. And slowly, quietly, without noticing, the mind loses its tolerance for hard things. Small inconveniences feel enormous. Small failures feel final. The Roman answer is simple. Make yourself uncomfortable on purpose. Not to punish yourself, to remind yourself that you can survive more than you think. Now here is the part that surprises almost everyone. Marcus Aurelius was not physically strong. He was thin. He was often sick. His health troubled him for most of his life. He wrote in his journals about pain, about fatigue, about waking up and not feeling well. By Roman standards, he was not an impressive physical specimen. And yet he was the most mentally disciplined man in the empire, because he understood what the body is really for. The body is not a machine for winning fights. The body is a classroom. Every morning you wake up and choose the harder thing you are teaching your mind. One lesson: comfort is not in control here. You are. You do not need to march 20 miles. You do not need to sleep on stone floors. But you can wake up 30 minutes earlier than you want to. You can take a cold shower when a warm one is available. You can sit with a difficult task instead of reaching for your phone. You can eat the plain meal instead of the easy one. Small choices, every day, on purpose. The body learns. Then the mind follows. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. And sometimes the door is cold. Walk through it anyway. Lesson 3. You are not your feelings. There was a slave in Rome who had no rights, no freedom, and no future. His master was a cruel man. One day, angry at something small, the master grabbed the slave's leg and began to twist it. The slave looked up at him calm as still water and said, "You are going to break it." The master twisted harder. The slave said, "I told you, it is broken now." And he said nothing more. That slave's name was Epictetus. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. And he became one of the most respected thinkers in all of Rome. Emperors studied his words. Marcus Aurelius carried his teachings everywhere. People asked Epictetus, "How do you stay so calm? How do you feel so little?" And Epictetus always corrected them. He did not feel less. He felt everything. He simply understood something that most people spend their whole lives missing. The event is not the problem. Your reaction is where the power lives. Think about the last time something made you angry. Really think about it. Someone said something unkind. A plan fell apart. A person you trusted let you down. In that moment, the feeling came fast, hot and immediate, like a fire someone threw at you. And it felt like the feeling was the only possible response, like the situation created the emotion automatically. But Epictetus said between the event and the response, there is a space. And in that space is your freedom. Most people never find that space. They move from event to reaction so fast that they believe the reaction was unavoidable. The Romans spent years training themselves to find that space, to stand in it, to choose. Someone insults you. That is the event. You feel the heat rise in your chest. That is the feeling. But what you do next, that is you. And you are not your feelings. Your project fails. That is the event. Disappointment arrives heavy and cold. That is the feeling. But what you do next is yours entirely. Your plans collapse. Everything you built shifts under your feet. That is the event. Fear comes. Of course it comes. But fear is not a command. It is just weather. And you are not the weather. You are the one who walks through it. The Stoics had a simple test. When something difficult happens before you speak, before you act, ask yourself one question. Is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, accept. Then act on what you can. This sounds simple. It is not easy. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal again and again reminders to himself to practice this. Not because it came naturally, because it did not. He was human. He felt frustration and grief and anger like any man. He buried his children. He was betrayed by generals he trusted. He watched everything he built threatened by forces he could not stop. But every morning he sat down and trained the separation. The event is outside me. My response is inside me. One I cannot control. One I can. Now imagine two soldiers standing on the same battlefield, the same enemy, the same danger, the same fear in the air. One soldier breaks. He freezes, or he runs, or he makes a decision born from panic that costs him everything. The other soldier stands, not because he feels no fear. He feels exactly the same fear. But his training has given him something the other soldier does not have: a space between the feeling and the action. That space is not built in a crisis. It is built in the quiet mornings before the crisis arrives. It is built every time you pause before you react. Every time you feel the heat and choose to breathe first. Every time you let a feeling pass through you instead of driving you. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your frustration or your grief or your doubt. You are what you do after those things arrive. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. And the door opens from the inside. Lesson 4. The obstacle is the weapon. The year is 165 AD. Rome is at the height of its power, and it is dying. A plague has entered the empire from the eastern frontier. No one knows where it came from. No one knows how to stop it. It moves from city to city, from soldier to soldier, from family to family. In some neighborhoods of Rome, 2,000 people die in a single day. The streets smell of smoke from the burning. Temples are full. Hospitals are full. The empire that has never been defeated by any army is being brought to its knees by something invisible. Marcus Aurelius is emperor. Everything is his responsibility. The wars on the northern border have not stopped. The Germanic tribes push harder, sensing weakness. The economy is fracturing. His generals need decisions. His senators need reassurance. His people need a leader who does not look afraid. And Marcus Aurelius does not look afraid. Not because he is not human. He is completely human. He writes in his journal during these years private words meant for no one but himself, and you can feel the weight of it. The exhaustion, the grief, the doubt. He was not a statue. He was a man carrying more than any man should carry. But he had learned something the Romans had understood for centuries before him, and something that most people today have entirely forgotten. The obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way. Most people believe that difficulty is the enemy of progress, that if things are hard, something has gone wrong, that the presence of pain or resistance or failure means you are on the wrong path. So they stop. They wait for conditions to improve. They tell themselves, when things get easier, I will begin. When the timing is right, I will move. When I feel ready, I will act. The Romans looked at this and shook their heads. Marcus wrote it plainly in his journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not writing poetry. He was writing instructions. He was reminding himself in the middle of a plague, in the middle of war, with the world falling apart around him, that the very thing blocking him was the thing that would make him stronger if he chose to move through it instead of around it. Think about the hardest thing in your life right now, the thing you wake up thinking about, the problem that has no easy answers, the situation that drains you and frustrates you and makes you wonder why it is happening to you. Now consider this: what if it is not happening to you? What if it is happening for you? Not in a comfortable way, not in a way that makes the pain smaller. The pain is real. The difficulty is real. But inside that difficulty is something the Romans understood, and most modern people have lost. Resistance builds strength. Pressure creates clarity. The things that push against you are the things that show you exactly what you are made of. A weak mind asks, "Why is this happening to me?" A strong mind asks, "What is this making me?" There was a man, not a Roman, not a historical figure, just a man, the way you and I are men and women, who lost his job at 42. He had worked for the same company for 16 years. He had a family, a mortgage, plans, and in one afternoon, all of it changed. The easy path was gone. He spent 3 months in the dark place, the place where fear lives and doubt is louder than reason. And then one morning, slowly, something shifted. He began to see that the 16 years had taught him things he could not have learned any other way. That the loss had removed the comfortable cage he had been sitting in without knowing it was a cage. That the obstacle had not ended his story. It had forced him to write a better one. He is not special. That movement from victim to builder, from why me to what now, is available to every person who chooses it. The Romans did not wait for conditions to improve. They used the conditions they had. They took the hardest material life gave them, and they built from it. Marcus Aurelius ruled for 19 years through plague, war, betrayal, and loss. And he is remembered not as a man who survived those things. He is remembered as a man who was made greater by them. The obstacle is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is your training ground. It is the thing that if you let it will make you into someone the comfortable version of yourself could never have become. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. And sometimes the door is the hardest thing you have ever had to push. Push it anyway. Lesson 5. The view from above. Close your eyes for a moment. Not literally because you are listening, but in your mind follow this. You are standing in the middle of your life. You have a problem in front of you. Maybe it is a relationship that is breaking. Maybe it is a failure that will not leave your thoughts. Maybe it is something someone said about you that you cannot stop hearing. It is close to your face. It is large. It fills your entire vision. And because it fills your entire vision, you cannot see anything else. You cannot see how small it actually is. You cannot see how temporary it actually is. You cannot see the 10,000 other things that are still whole and still working and still yours. This is where Marcus Aurelius would stop and look up. He called it the view from above. When a problem began to grow too large in his mind, he would practice pulling back. First, he would see himself sitting at his desk in Rome. Then he would pull back further and see Rome itself, the 7 hills, the river, the roads going out in every direction. Then further still the whole empire stretching from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Persia. Then the earth itself turning quietly in the dark. Then the stars beyond. And there from that distance he would look back down at his problem. It was still real. He was not pretending it did not exist. He was not telling himself it did not matter. He was simply giving it its actual size. Not the size his fear had made it. Its actual size. Marcus wrote this, think about how quickly things change and disappear. The past is gone. The future is unknown. This present moment with all its difficulty is just one small point on a line that runs in both directions forever. Your problem exists in that one small point, but you exist on the whole line. Now think about your own life. The thing that is troubling you today. Ask yourself one honest question: will this matter in 10 years? Sometimes the answer is yes. Some things do matter for 10 years, for 20, for a lifetime. And those things deserve your full attention and your best effort. But honestly, for most of the things that keep us awake at night, the answer is no. The argument will be forgotten. The embarrassment will fade. The failure that feels permanent is not permanent. From a distance, it is already smaller than it feels right now. Your argument, your embarrassment, your failure. From above, they are moments. From inside, they feel like everything. The Romans practiced this not to feel less, but to think more clearly. When you are too close to a problem, your thinking becomes emotional and small. When you step back, your thinking becomes calm and wide. And calm, wide thinking finds solutions that fear and closeness cannot see. Here is how to use this today. 3 steps. When something is pressing too hard against you, when the weight of it is making it difficult to think, stop for 60 seconds. First, see yourself in the room you are sitting in right now. Then pull back and see your city. Then your country. Then the earth from space. Hold that image for 10 seconds. Then look back down at your problem. You will not feel nothing. The problem will still be there, but it will be the right size. And when a problem is the right size, you can pick it up and carry it, instead of letting it carry you. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire of 60 million people. He made decisions every day that affected the lives of millions. He could not afford to let any single problem fill his entire vision. So he practiced making space around his problems, deliberately, daily. Not because his problems were small, because he needed to be larger than they were. That is available to you, too. And sometimes, the door is simply the decision to look up. Lesson 6. Right to fight. Somewhere in the imperial archives of Rome, there is a document that was never meant to be found. It has no title. It was not written for senators or soldiers or historians. It was not written to teach anyone anything. It was written by one man for one man, in the private hours before the world demanded his attention. It is a collection of notes, reminders, corrections, and instructions that a man wrote to himself across many years of his life. We call it Meditations. And it is one of the most powerful books ever written, precisely because it was never supposed to be a book at all. Marcus Aurelius did not write Meditations to become famous. He wrote it because his mind needed training. Every morning, or sometimes in the late hours of the night after a long day of governing the largest empire on earth, he would open his journal and he would write. Not about his victories, not about his greatness, about his failures, about the places where he had been impatient that day, or unkind, or weak, about the standards he had set for himself and the ways he had fallen short. He wrote things like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was not writing that for you. He was writing it for himself, because he had forgotten it that day. Because some senator had made him angry, or some decision had made him doubt himself, and he needed to return to the truth he already knew. This is what the Romans understood about the mind that the modern world has largely forgotten. The mind does not hold its training automatically. Like a muscle that softens without use, the mind drifts without practice. The good ideas you learned last year are fading right now unless you return to them. The calm you built last month is weakening unless you exercise it. The discipline you developed last week is already looking for a reason to rest. Writing pulls it back. Every night, the Roman practice of reflection was simple. 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What will I do differently tomorrow? Not a long process, not a complicated system, just honest words on paper at the end of the day before sleep takes the thoughts away. Most people end their day looking at a screen. scrolling through other people's lives, absorbing noise, filling the last quiet hour with distraction. Romans ended their day writing, sitting with themselves, being honest with themselves, not performing for anyone. Just a man and his thoughts, and the discipline to face both. Marcus Aurelius was not gentle with himself on those pages. He did not write, "Today was hard, but I did my best." He wrote, "You were impatient today. You reacted before you thought. You let small things disturb you when you know they should not. Do better tomorrow." He held himself to a standard, and he put that standard in writing where he could not pretend it did not exist. This is the difference between thinking about improvement and actually improving. People think about the person they want to become. They imagine it. They intend it. But intention without record disappears like smoke. Writing makes it real. Writing makes it a contract. You do not need to be an emperor. You do not need fine paper or a formal process. 1 page, 3 questions, every night before you sleep. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What will I correct tomorrow? Do this for 30 days, and something will happen that you cannot fully predict and cannot fully explain. You will begin to become more of the person you are writing about, and less of the person you have been settling for. Marcus Aurelius did it for 19 years on the throne, through plague and war and grief and doubt. Every night, the lamp, the page, and the honest words. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. And some nights, the door is just a pen and an empty page and the courage to be honest. Lesson 7. The Emperor's Last Lesson. It is March 180 AD. A military camp on the banks of the Danube River. The place the Romans called Vindobona. The place we now call Vienna. It is cold. The river is gray. The war with the Germanic tribes has been going on for years and is not finished. There are still decisions to be made, still orders to be given, still an empire that needs its emperor. But Marcus Aurelius is dying. He is 58 years old. His body, never strong, has finally given out. Fever. Then weakness. Then the slow withdrawal that the people around him recognize and do not want to name. His generals come to his tent. His son Commodus is there. His closest advisors stand at the edges of the room waiting. And Marcus Aurelius, with whatever strength remains in him, does something that no one who was there ever forgot. He tells them not to weep for him. He says, "Do not weep for me. Think of the plague. Think of the wars. Think of all the people who suffered without choice, without preparation, without the tools to understand what was happening to them. I had my purpose. I found it early. I served it every day. I have no complaint." These are not the words of a man who endured his life. These are the words of a man who used it. And this is the last lesson, the one that makes all the others make sense. Discipline is not punishment. It is not the cold shower you force yourself to take, or the early alarm you drag yourself out of bed to answer, or the difficult conversation you push yourself to have. Those things are practices. They are the training, but they are not the point. The point is this: a disciplined life is a life you actually live, not a life that happens to you while you are waiting for better conditions. Not a life you watch from a safe distance because the real version felt too hard. A life you choose every morning with full knowledge of its difficulty and full acceptance of its terms. Marcus Aurelius could have been a different kind of emperor. He could have stayed in Rome in his palace, far from the wars. He could have handed decisions to advisors and spent his years in comfort. No one would have stopped him. Power allows that. Comfort is always available to the powerful. He chose the harder thing, every single day, for 19 years. Not because the world asked him to, because he asked it of himself. And when the end came, cold and far from home in a military camp on a gray river, he had nothing to regret. Not because his life had been easy, because he had not wasted it. That is what discipline gives you. Not a perfect life. Not a life without pain or failure or loss. Those things come for everyone. Discipline gives you something far more valuable. It gives you the ability to look at your life honestly and say, I was present. I did not hide. I moved through the hard things instead of around them. I became slowly and imperfectly, and with many failures along the way, the person I decided to be. Marcus Aurelius was not a perfect man. His journals say so clearly. He failed. He doubted. He struggled. But he never stopped training. He never decided that the practice was finished and the work was done. Until the very last day, he was still correcting himself, still asking more of himself, still reaching toward the standard he had set. That is the Roman way. Not perfection. Direction. 7 lessons from 2,000 years ago. 7 methods that built the most powerful minds in the ancient world. And every single one of them is available to you. Today. Tomorrow. Every morning you choose to begin. Face the worst before it arrives. Choose discomfort before it chooses you. Find the space between the feeling and the response. Use the obstacle instead of fearing it. Give your problems their actual size. Write honestly to the person you are becoming, and never, not once, mistake comfort for the goal. Discipline is not a prison. It is the door. Marcus Aurelius walked through it every morning for 58 years. The door is still open. Which of these 7 lessons hit you hardest today? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Keep coming back for more stories and lessons that sharpen your mind and grow your English at the same time. See you in the next one.